Hi, I am Dr. Stephen Stosny, and thank you for joining us for the second part of our webinar on living and loving after betrayal, how to heal from emotional abuse, deceit, infidelity, and chronic resentment. Now, I want to start with a brief review of webinar 1 in case you haven't viewed that yet. You'll be able to have a link to it if you haven't. Betrayal by a loved one causes a unique kind of pain that strikes at the very core of our capacity to love and to trust. The natural defenses against the pain of intimate betrayal are general central nervous system defenses. That means that through no fault of your own, they are likely to infect almost everything you do, especially your more important relationships. Now, there are many forms of intimate betrayal. What they have in common, that is what qualifies them as intimate betrayal, is violation of the implicit promise that gives us the courage to love in the first place. And that's that no matter what happens, the person you love and trust will care about your well-being and never intentionally hurt you. See, that central point is what causes the most pain and impairs the ability to live well after betrayal. And that gets lost, I believe, when you focus on the specific kinds of abuse like infidelity, or specific kinds of betrayal rather, like abuse or infidelity or deceit or financial machinations. It's this betrayal of the promise to care about your well-being and never intentionally hurt you. That's what does the damage, and that's what we have to address. Betrayals that violate the promise never to intentionally hurt are things like emotional abuse, verbal aggression, domestic violence, where you are intentionally trying to hurt someone. Failure to care about your well-being includes deceit, infidelity, covert misuse of communal resources. That's doing something with the 401k without your partner knowing about it, that kind of thing. Continual resentment, anger, criticism, stonewalling, and other isolating or hurtful behaviors. You might not have an intention to hurt doing those things, but they violate that implicit promise to care about the well-being of the person that you love. So you're not going to let down your defenses enough to form emotional bonds if you don't have those promises. I won't intentionally hurt you, and I will always care about your well-being. Now, the principles of healing and growth. That's what we're going to start this section on. Healing and growth require adherence to certain neurological principles. Ignoring or violating any of them inhibits healing and growth and may stop it completely. Now, the first is that mental focus amplifies and magnifies. Whatever we focus on becomes important by virtue of the focus. So just focusing on it makes it more important. And that's similar to the observer effect in physics. That's when you can't really observe something without changing it. The act of the observation or the measurement actually changes what you're observing on. And that's the way mental focus happens. Your perception, your emotions, whatever you're focusing on, makes it more important than it would be without the focus. The neural pathways of repeated focus become physically larger, stronger, and more automatic. In other words, if you continually focus on something, that part of your brain becomes physically larger, those connections in your brain, stronger, more automatic. In other words, habits. The brain constantly forms habits through repetition, and it does that to conserve energy. The difference between an intentional behavior, one that you consciously decide to do, and a habitual behavior is hundreds of millions of neurons. So it's metabolically expensive to make a choice, metabolically cheap to do something by habit. So your brain will form, if you do something repeatedly, you will soon do it automatically. That's the neurological rule. Now, we change the brain through change in focus and repetition. So the way you want to change your life is to choose what you focus on, and especially what you focus on repeatedly. So those are the principles that guide recovery from intimate betrayal. Now, the first goal of living and loving after betrayal is wiping the footprints of betrayal from the heart and soul, because they certainly leave footprints on your ability to love and your ability to have any kind of transcendent experience. The footprints that linger on the heart and soul after intimate betrayal are memories laced with painful feelings, defenses against feelings of the past, and rigid walls to prevent future hurt. These keep the injury fresh, ever in the present, and likely to dominate the future. Now, it's natural that those things develop. Don't be hard on yourself because they have developed. The whole purpose of this book is to overcome them, and if they didn't develop naturally, you wouldn't need the book, or I wouldn't have needed to write the book. The worst of all, painful memories, defenses and protective walls make you into someone you're not. They make you lose touch with your deepest sense of who you are as a person. To reclaim your inner self, realize that your hurt, defenses, and protective walls are not the real you. No more than the runny nose you when you have the flu is the real you. You are greater than memories of what happened to you. You're greater than the defensive and protective walls caused by what happened to you. That's what you really want to remember. These are temporary symptoms. They are not who you are as a person. Now, the major impediment to healing and growth is focus on how bad we feel. When we're hurt, it's natural to focus on how bad we feel. The evolved purpose of negative feelings is to get our attention, so we'll do something that will heal, correct, and improve. And we talked about that in the last webinar. That's the purpose of negative feelings and pain, to get you to do something to make it better. What is not natural is to focus on how unfair it is that we feel the way we do, or why the hurt had to happen. That's where we tend to get stuck in trying to recover. So the focus on the bad feeling is merely to get your attention to do something to make it better. It's not to focus on how unfair it is or why it happened. Focus on the unfairness of feelings or why the hurt happened keeps the footprints of injury on the heart and soul due to the neurological principles, not your personality or personal psychology. So it's not what kind of person you are, what kind of childhood you had. It's the neurological principles that keep you stuck on that treadmill. In other words, if focusing on how bad you feel amplifies and magnifies the negative experience, strengthens neural connections of hurt and perceived damage, creates habits of maladaptive defenses, and those are hypervigilance, always looking for something to go wrong, anger or emotional shutdown, or chronic resentment. Those are the most common maladaptive defenses. So by focusing on why it happened, or what was the motivation of the betrayer, or how unfair it was, all of those by virtue of, through no fault of your own, by virtue of these neurological principles, keep you stuck in the pain and impair healing and growth. Now, to heal and grow, we must focus less on how bad we feel and more on our deeper values. Those beliefs and qualities that are most important to you, for example, and these are just what people identify in research that we've done: honesty, responsibility, ability to love, appreciation of nature, creative beauty, spirituality, compassion, sense of community, fairness, gratitude, and there's others too. These are the main ones. Some of these we're hardwired for, like the ability to love, the ability to appreciate, and others we develop for our personal experience and internalizing cultural values. Now, in regard to healing and growth, values are more important than feelings. Feelings, that might sound heretical coming from a therapist, but because the first thing we're taught is how do you feel about that? That feelings are actually a terrible guide for behavior, and these are the reasons why. Feelings are more about what you're experiencing than who you are. They're highly reactive to the environment. Whatever is going on around you has enormous influence on your feelings. They're greatly affected by physiological states: tired, hungry, thirsty, cold, hot, sick, amount of alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, or other substances consumed. I should add sugar to that. Highly habituated, automatically stimulated by mere similarities with past experience. They are about the past. Your brain uses feelings to construct from past experience a model of what's happening now. So what that means is they will keep you making the same mistakes over and over if you just act on your feelings. And they're transitory. They come and go within minutes. That's provided you don't amplify, magnify, and prolong them by trying to interpret, validate, or justify them. Feelings aren't really meant to be interpreted, validated, or justified. They're meant to motivate behavior. So partly it's my profession, and worse than that, pop psychology, which you read on the internet, that gets so much into interpretation, validation, and justification, when that's not really the natural focus of feelings, and that will lead you wrong almost all the time. Now, in contrast, values are more about you than what you're experiencing. They're far less reactive to the environment. You're who you are, no matter where you are or whom you're with. They're far less influenced by physiological states. You're not likely to lose faith or love or become dishonest or less humane when tired, hungry, thirsty, uncomfortable, etc. So your deeper values aren't affected by those things. They're consistent over time, more or less. They change a little bit as we mature, but the core values are pretty consistent. In short, your values are far more stable and reflective of who you truly are. Acting on your values will change your feelings. You feel more authentic with less guilt, shame, or anxiety. And as a result, you need fewer defenses like resentment, anger, and emotional shutdown. But if you act on your feelings, you're likely to violate your deeper values and cause more guilt, shame, anxiety, anger, and defensive resentment. And the common example of that is revenge. You're acting on the retaliatory feeling you feel, and you justify it, you amplify it, you magnify it, and it will cause you to violate your deeper values. No matter how much you justify it, you're going to experience a certain amount of guilt, shame, or anxiety when you act on it. Now, consistently acting on values provides a solid sense of self. You know who you are, what you stand for, and what is most important to and about you. Consistently acting on your feelings causes identity diffusion. We have more identity diffusion now than like 30 years ago when I started, and that's when you're not sure who you are. You have a lot of self-doubt, and I think part of the reason for that is we've emphasized feelings so much in the popular literature. Feelings will never give you a sense of who you are. They're too transitory and they're too reactive to your environment. You'll be a reactaholic if you focus on just on your feelings. Now, I'm not saying feelings aren't important. They're alarms. They're signals. They have to be checked out, but they're not reality. They're signals about a possible reality. Now, you're filled with self-doubt and not at all sure who you are and what you stand for. That's what identity diffusion is, unless you're angry. Now, because this focus on feelings, especially when they're going to be mostly negative, like after an intimate betrayal, causes so much identity diffusion, what we tend to seek to give momentary clarity is some form of anger. After betrayal, some form of anger becomes addictive. And that, again, that's not your personality or your childhood, what kind of person you are. It's due to the biology of anger, the analgesic and amphetamine effects of it. And the analgesic effect of anger is simply anger numbs pain. When you bang your thumb hanging a picture, you don't pray. Your brain will push that anger button so it can get the temporary pain relief of the anger. Angry athletes can break bones and not know about it while still angry. It's actually dangerous, especially in contact sports, for them to play angry because they can sustain a serious injury and not know it. And that's survival based. If you were early humans being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, you can't say, well, you know, my knee hurts, can you attack me tomorrow? I'll put you down for 4. You had to be able to defend yourself or run away on that sore knee, so the anger will block the messages of pain. It's also why wounded animals are the most ferocious. Pain stimulates protective anger, so the more pain you're in, the angrier you're likely to get. Anger numbs psychological pain caused by core hurts, and the core hurts that come after intimate betrayal are almost always inadequate and unlovable. Now, inadequate doesn't mean incompetent. Inadequate means as an attachment figure. In other words, your love isn't enough for someone else. Your love is inadequate and you're not worthy of love. Just about everyone has those core hurts, and they're not bad, really, because they keep us from doing things that would make us unlovable. So they're in moderation, they're not bad. But after intimate betrayal, they get way out of proportion. So we tend to get angry to try to avoid that hurt. The problem is feeling unlovable and inadequate are not punishments that have to be numbed. They're motivations to act on. When you feel unlovable, you have to do something that will make you feel lovable. But when you numb the pain with anger, it kills the motivation. So instead of, when you're angry, you're not going to do something that will make you feel more lovable. You're highly likely to do something that will make you feel even less lovable. Now, the amphetamine effect is energy and confidence. The most powerful amphetamine your body can tolerate is when you get angry. Amphetamine's like speed. In any kind of amphetamine, you get energy, confidence, and power. So you start down here and you zip up with energy, confidence, sense of power. Then what happens? You crash. The energy, confidence, sense of power gets a peak, and then you crash into weariness, self-doubt, regret. So maybe I shouldn't have grounded the kid until he was 42. You know, maybe I shouldn't have turned off the lamp with the rock. The self-doubt starts coming in after the anger and the confidence, sense of power wear off. So you begin to get this kind of roller coaster, low energy, confidence, and power. You get angry. You know, I'm right, everybody else is wrong. That's the way it feels like. But then that wears off and you get down lower than it picks you up. It always drops you down. You're borrowing the energy from the future and you got to pay it back. So it drops you down lower than it picked you up. Then you have to get angry again to get more energy, confidence, and power. And then pretty soon, your brain's going to automatically start looking for when you're down here. It's going to look for something to get angry about. And a lot of research shows that whatever your brain looks for, it will find. It's something called confirmation bias. You will interpret everything according to your bias and disregard, if it's emotionally important to you, and disregard information that contradicts it. Now, most people can't live in this kind of roller coaster where you're really angry and then really depressed. So most of us cut it off with a chronic, mostly unconscious, low-grade resentment. So resentment keeps you from getting very angry and very depressed. So you don't have as much intense anger. You have some, but not as much, and you don't have as much depression. But it makes your emotional range very narrow, rigid, and chronically negative. Life becomes a joyless drive to get things done. And my example of that, because resentment gives you enough adrenaline that you can function, you'll do what you have to do. You'll take the kids to the soccer game and drop the clothes off at the cleaners. I use that example because you make mistakes when you're resentful, but you won't be interested in anything and you won't enjoy anything. That's how a resentful life is. Now, it's perfectly natural to develop resentment and anger after intimate betrayal. You never have to justify it. You never have to justify resentment. You never have to justify anger. And certainly, you never have to feel ashamed of feeling anger or resentment. The important questions are not whether your anger and resentment are normal or justified. They certainly are. And not whether your betrayer deserves your anger and resentment. He or she certainly does. The most important questions are, do I want to be angry and resentful? Are resentment and anger helping me heal and grow and reclaim my true self? Are they allowing me to create value, interest, and enjoyment in my life? You have the right to be angry and resentful, but that's not the proper question. The proper question is, what's the best for me? Now, working the exercises in living and loving after betrayal will help you develop more value, interest, and enjoyment in life, which will make resentment and defensive walls unnecessary. You won't need them anymore, and they go away on their own because you don't need them. And the way they make them unnecessary is by enhancing the psychological immune system. Now, although most emotional injury of any kind has a specific cause, the effects of the injury are very general. And that's another reason why I focus on, instead of abuse, recovering from abuse or infidelity or deceit or all the different kinds of betrayal, I focus on the generalized effect because that goes well beyond the specific cause, and so must the healing. So the effects of the injury are general and the cure has to be equally general. But it's even that way with physical injury. If you get shot, obviously the gunshot caused the distress, but treatment must enhance the entire immune system to restore the general health of the body, because the effects of the wound have caused lots of other problems in your body. And it's the same with healing after intimate betrayal. It must restore the psychological immune system. And that is your ability to create value, meaning, and purpose in your life. As long as you can do that, you function psychologically at a very high level. And I call it your core value. Now, what is core value? Human beings are born with a drive to create value that goes beyond animal motivations. And those are things like survival, seeking pleasure and comfort, avoiding pain. And in social animals, it's status. Solitary animals don't care about status. Social animals, and humans are the most social animals, do care about status. So those are the animal motivations. Value is beyond those. To value someone or something is to hold that person or thing as important and worthy of appreciation, time, energy, effort, and sacrifice. Core value is the deepest and most uniquely human experience. From birth, it makes us seek to value and be valued. Human infants come out of the womb primarily seeking to form an emotional bond of value or love, if you prefer. They want to love and they want to be loved, and research shows that is more important to them than food, water, and comfort. I mean, they want food, water, and comfort too, don't get me wrong, but if they have to choose, they will take that value connection. They will even want the value connection if it leads to mistreatment and abuse. In its most advanced level, a sense of core value is a sense of humanity, harmony, appreciation, vitality. In other words, life means more to us when we're in this state of core value. When conscious of it, which is rare, it's mostly an unconscious motivation, we feel the most alive. If you're looking at a beautiful sunset, looking at your children when they're asleep, it's easier to value them when they're asleep. Having a romantic moment with someone you love, whenever you have, or hearing music where you become the music, as T.S. Eliot put it, those are enhanced feelings of value. Life means more to you. But those are pretty rare, but at those moments we value one another, beauty, nature, some notion of spirituality, something larger than the self. It's transcendent. We become greater. Now, when in touch with core value, we are true to the most important things to us and the most important qualities about us. And that leads to a sense of meaning, purpose, and harmony. Emotional well-being depends on valuing more than we devalue. If you value more than you devalue, your life is generally good despite the bad things that occasionally happen. And a lot of research shows that. But think in terms of your own life, times when you were creating more value, appreciating more, looking for more good things in your life. There were bad things happen during those periods, but you were able to handle them much better. Now, if you devalue more than you value, you are likely to suffer resentment, depression, and anxiety despite good things that happen. So you can have a lot of good things happen to you, but if you are in that devaluing state, they won't matter. You're going to focus on the cloud within the silver lining. Now, getting in touch with core value, because obviously intimate betrayal is going to put you into that devalued state and make you chronically devalue. So you've got to change that habit, and that means getting in touch with core value. We never lose core value. It's our birthright. So that's the first thing. No matter how out of touch with it, it's still there. You go deeply enough into yourself, you must come to core value. But we often lose touch with it, especially under stress, and most especially after intimate betrayal. Getting in touch with core value and staying in touch with it is the major theme of living and loving after betrayal. Now, you want to think of core value as a place within. It's not outside of you. It's within you. It's a solid foundation within you where you can go at any time for strength and renewal. In your core value, you know you're valuable because you want to improve, appreciate, connect, or protect. Those are what I call the core value motivations. When you're in a state of core value, you are automatically trying to do one of those. Improve, make your situation better, appreciate something or someone, connect to someone, or protect someone or something. And that shows you that you're valuable. You don't have to say, I'm valuable. Somebody else doesn't have to say you're valuable. You feel it when you are trying to improve, appreciate, connect, or protect. You know you're worthy of love because you can feel compassion. Negative emotional states are turned into motivations to improve, appreciate, connect, or protect. That's what happens in your core value. I should probably explain that a little better, that you know you're worthy of love because you can feel compassion. See, when you feel unlovable, most of us get into the habit early in life of getting angry or resentful when we feel unlovable, because we identify feeling unlovable with depression. And we don't want to feel depressed and vulnerable, so we get angry. But really the natural motivation, and you can see it in toddlers when you feel unlovable, is to try to be lovable, do something to make you feel lovable. When a toddler's feeling insecure, they try to be sweet and loving until they get punished for doing that if you're annoyed with them, and then they start getting angry and distressed. But they try to be sweet and loving when they feel unlovable. Now, if you are compassionate, you can't feel unlovable. They're incompatible. If you think of just think for a moment of adults you know who are lovable, who you regard as being very lovable. I will bet that the primary quality that stands out in those people is that you regard them as being compassionate. If you think they're lovable, they're compassionate. Adults, we mean. Children are lovable just because they're cute. And in fact, in surveys, people all over the world will mention what makes a person lovable. It'll be some aspect of compassion. They don't always use the word, but it's some aspect of compassion. You don't think of somebody who just cares about themselves, just cares about their own experience, their own vulnerability, or their own accomplishments. They have to have an emotional investment in someone else. So if you want to feel worthy of love, you have to feel compassion. All right, now here's a core value exercise, and it's linking values with behaviors, because values have to be enacted in behaviors. Now, living and loving after betrayal has dozens of exercises, and their purpose is to build habits of value-creating behavior. We've learned neurologically that lasting change occurs not through insight, but by repetition of corrective behaviors, building new habits. If you've gone into traditional psychotherapy, you probably got a lot of insight about yourself and your patterns of your behavior, and they unfortunately didn't do very much to change them. And that's because you've got to actually react mostly out of habit. You've got to change your habits to get lasting change. Now, healing and growth require behavioral commitments to a new way of seeing yourself in the world. They do not rise miraculously from affirmations or temporary changes in feelings. They must be enacted and repeated in specific behaviors to produce lasting benefit. You have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, in other words. All right, so here's this exercise for linking behaviors to core value identity. I am, and by the way, saying this, I am, and whatever comes into your head, that's an example of something you identify with. I am, an example of a value identity, is compassionate to loved ones. And most people, when they don't always identify that as primary value, although if they have loved ones, they usually do. But almost everyone, in all studies of regret, will say what they regret the most, or among the most things they regret, is not being compassionate enough to their loved ones. So this is a way of preventing regret that's inevitable. If you aren't more compassionate to loved ones, that regret is inevitable. So that's my identity. This is the behavior that will reinforce it. I will try to understand their perspectives and find something to sympathize with, especially when I disagree with them or want their behavior to change. So you can't just say, I'm compassionate. You've got to be able to try to really get what it's like for them. Understand that they're different from you, with different vulnerabilities, different experiences, different interpretations. Try to find something you can sympathize with in that, not in so much in their behavior, but in what their perspective is. And you have to do that especially when you want them to change their behavior or when you disagree with them. See, if you agree with them and you're okay with their behavior, compassion's not really that important. It's important when you disagree and when you don't like their behavior. I am, for example, protective of loved ones. That's a primary value for most people. So the behavior that will reinforce that value, I'm going to act in ways that promote their well-being. So you can't just be protective when you feel like it or when there's something really seriously wrong. You have to do it kind of consistently in ways that promote their well-being. I want people I love to be well, to be happy. I am, for example, appreciative of loved ones. I will focus on the benefits they add to my life. That doesn't mean, by the way, that you're going to ignore bad things that they do. What you're going to do is see both and choose to focus on what they add to your life. And then if you have to negotiate about the things you don't like, you're going to do it from a position of strength because you're focused on what they add to your life. You'll be more appreciative, and the person you're negotiating with will be less defensive. I am responsible. I will keep my word and stay focused on improving. I can't tell you how many hundreds of clients I've had who regard themselves as responsible and who never keep their word and never stay focused on, well, I shouldn't say never. They often don't keep their word and don't stay focused on improving their life and their situations, but they regard themselves as responsible. I'm creative. I will try to look at things from many different perspectives and think outside the box. So I think you get the idea. What you have to do is find behaviors that are going to reinforce those values. And that makes them much stronger, reinforces the synaptic connections in your brain, makes them more habitual and automatic. And when your behaviors become habituated, that's when you get change, for better or worse. But if you decide to act on your values, the changes will be for the better. Now, the point of this exercise is to show that consistently acting on your deeper values will build an empowered sense of self. It takes many exercises to retrain the brain to heal and grow after intimate betrayal. But your healing and growth are worth the effort. I wish it could be easier, but unfortunately it's not. The pain is great. The effects of the betrayal are enormous. And the healing and growth is possible, but in fact, it's likely if you take the steps outlined in the book, but it's not easy. Now, the ultimate purpose of living and loving after betrayal is to help you take control of your emotional well-being. Much of it is based on recent neurological findings, how the brain forms habits and grows new cells through focus and repetition, and how we can control the meaning of our lives by choosing what to focus on and what to regard as important and worthy of time and energy. The path to recovery from intimate betrayal is long and sometimes torturous. Thousands of my clients have shown the awesome courage to heal and grow from the depths of intimate betrayal, to live and love fully and free of guilt, shame, and resentment, and I know that you can too. So thank you for your attention, and good luck in your healing and growth that you so much deserve.